Morning. My name is Richard Wexler, and this is Caring in America, the podcast for caregivers. And as I do on every episode, give you folks a little background of who I am and why I'm doing this. So about 18 years ago, I'm working in the software industry, minding my own business. My wife and I got married later. We had two young children at that point, 11 and 7. And then in the summer of '05, our phone starts ringing, and it rings 4 times for each one of our parents who are now severely ill. Had we planned for this? Of course not. I think we magically thought as they got older, they would just somehow be okay. And now things obviously changed. This led to the formation of my company, Points of Life, gave me the opportunity to educate folks, and luckily I've been able to educate thousands across the country. And then I got to a point where I said, I'd like to be able to reach out to more. And that's why we started the podcast. So I think we have a special episode today, folks. We have a special guest by the name of Joy Loverde. I'm about to introduce her via her bio, and then we will bring her on live. So Joy is recognized as one of the leading experts on successful aging and family caregiving. She has over 25 years experience as a media spokesperson. She's made appearances on the Today Show, CBS Early News, CNN Headline News, Fox News, National Public Radio, and more. During her career, she's been quoted on the Wall Street Journal, within the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, LA Times, Kiplinger's Retirement Report, and HR Magazine. And USA Today ran a 4-part series on Joy and the subject of elder care. She's also written a couple books that we're going to talk about later. The first one is The Complete Elder Care Planner. It's now revised and updated in its 4th edition. And she's also written Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? So, Joy, are you there, ma'am?
I sure am.
Well, welcome to Caring in America.
I love what you're doing, Richard. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So, I may be wrong. I believe you're in the Chicago area. Is that correct?
It is correct. And as we talk, there may be a little city noise behind me, and I'll apologize ahead of time. It's a very noisy, fabulous, vibrant city. So, yeah. And I'm a diehard Cub fan. Can I say that right out of the gate?
And I'm a diehard Giants fan, but yeah, I mean the Cubs have had some success over the last 10 years. Giants have had a tiny bit more, but obviously we now have a World Series as of last night. Arizona and Texas with Bruce Bochy, the manager of Texas, who used to be the manager of the Giants. So, kind of moving into this, we're coming up to a time in the year that you know and I know can be a little bit crazy in the elder care industry. I'm talking, go ahead.
I'm laughing a little bit crazy during the holidays with your parents and grandparents. That's an understatement.
I'm trying to be nice. So, yeah, I agree with you. And then all of a sudden, you get these crazy adult kids that come home, and maybe they haven't been home since the 4th of July or someone's birthday last spring. And now they come home and they see mom, they see dad. Maybe if they're a little bit younger, they see grandparents. And as you were correcting me, it can get really crazy during the holidays, and especially as kids start seeing mom or dad and maybe seeing some changes. Dad's
Mhm.
gait has slowed down. Mom calls the daughter by her sister's name.
Yeah.
What's going on? So
Oh.
let me ask you a question. What can happen when adult children bring up the subject of parent care during the holidays?
Well, mom and dad invite us to come visit to have a good time and eat food together, have meals together, and be one big happy family like they used to be, or what they think it used to be. So if we start coming out of the gate with mom, this place is a mess. What do are you really able to stay here like this all by yourself, or with things the way they are? And all of a sudden they feel attacked, and they're on the hot seat. And just because we walked in the door and noticed things that they haven't noticed for years, it is such a shock for the adult child and for the parent to be in that position. And so uh, the holidays just tend to, because families get together during that time on their turf many times, it's all hell breaks loose.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's a big statement, and I would certainly agree. And having been doing this for not quite as long as you, but for about 18 years, I know we see things getting really busy in the elder care industry in January and February as those kids go back to their house, start talking to each other, maybe reach out to brothers and sisters and go, "Hey, did you notice mom? Hey, did you notice dad? Hey, what's going on with them living there and the stairs?" And whatever subject matter they may bring up. So, we're going to talk about your books in a few minutes, but you talk about a subject that I've been yelling about for all the years I've been doing this. I don't know what your response is, and we're going to kind of talk about this, how it pertains to the holidays. But I utilize this four letter word that people don't like called plan.
Yeah.
And the fact that, and you may disagree with me, but I truly, from what I've seen personally, since we didn't plan, and what I've seen professionally, that it does make things a little bit easier from a lot of perspectives if there is a plan. And is it important to have some sort of a family meeting before and let's say after the holidays?
Absolutely. So the ideal situation is this: picture yourself contacting others who may be involved with your parents' or grandparents' care. Then make a date to get together, virtually or otherwise, and have a discussion about what might be observed when you get together during the holidays. So contacting each other before the holidays is a real good thing. And then all you have to do is tell them to do one thing: make observations, and then we're going to get together after the holidays and talk about what you saw or what you heard. And that's it. Now, that begins the foundation for planning on these very sensitive conversations that we have going forward with our elders. But none of it should be discussed during the holidays. So, planning for families before the holidays, get together, uh, discuss, observing, have fun during the holidays. In January, get back on the phone or virtually and talk about what you saw and go from there.
So that's great advice. Let me ask you some procedural parts of that. So let's say you have four brothers and sisters. Let's say you're all coming home for Christmas, and you reach out and talk a little bit before Christmas as you're advising. You go home, you see what's happening with mom, dad, or potentially maybe both of them. So, from a procedural perspective, it's now after Christmas. The four siblings have gone home. You're talking about a phone call, maybe you're talking about a Zoom meeting or something like that.
Hmm.
How many of those four siblings should be on that call? That's the first question. And then the second question, how do you start that call?
You just, one somebody typically takes the initiative, and the one who is actually thinking like a planner invites the entire family to the initial gathering before the holidays. That's key because you're going to find out who's not on the same page as you,
Got
and
it.
who may sabotage what may take place later on. Not everybody cares about elder care in the same way and for the same reason. There are thousands of reasons why people do not want to do this. And one of the best ones is the denial that their parents will someday not be there. So this is a way to ease people into that fact. And if they're not on the same page and they don't want to be a part of this, then cut them some slack and say, it's okay. We understand this is hard for you. It's okay. We're here. And if you ever want to, engage in this again, let us know. It may take a while for some of our siblings. And it's not just siblings. Sometimes it's other people who care about them, their in-laws, or grandchildren. Bring them in. Let them know you're concerned. Family meeting is family and friends.
Wow. No, I love that. And one thing that I want to make sure, and I want to make sure the listeners understand too, and something you said that I may have misinterpreted, and I apologize. So that the pre-Christmas, the pre-Thanksgiving conversation, this family meeting, you're saying, let's say we're talking about mom and dad. You're saying mom and dad, and the kids are all over the country, maybe even all over the world, but that conversation, that meeting should encompass them as well.
No, you're
Oh,
talking about the
no.
no, no. Parents are not invited to these meetings.
The pre meeting or the post meeting?
Both. This
Both.
is
Okay.
this is only for people who are concerned about their well-being, and then you make a plan for how you're going to go forward. Which both of my books just give so many tips on getting the conversation started. But this is not that. The meeting is about, I think we should talk about it. I think we should make a plan. I'm becoming concerned. How about you?
Wow. What one last question about this, and it's obviously very important, and I really hope the people that are listening, and I've talked about this on every episode, and Joy talks about this a lot in all that she's done in her books as well. I mean, this plan, folks, is so, so important. I mean, I've talked about this. On the West Coast, people plan every iota of their vacation to Hawaii. On the East Coast, maybe to the Bahamas, etc. But they won't discuss this issue. And like in my own case, and I'm not telling you you're going to wind up in a 14-year caregiving situation, but it can be unbelievable. And then, as my wife and I unfortunately did, you walk into this with no plan. And that is extremely difficult. So my last question on this subject. So you've met pre-Christmas, you saw what you saw when you went home, the family without the parents meets again post-Christmas. They decide that the oldest daughter may should be the one that reaches out to mom and dad. Do you have any advice when she actually has that conversation with them, how she begins that conversation?
It depends on the relationship, Richard. It will depend on the trust level that already exists between the chosen adult child and the parent. And one thing I do is I don't talk to both parents separately, I mean together. I we typically have a better relationship with one of our parents versus both, and it's very helpful to just kind of make it extremely casual in the kitchen or something, or not on the phone, by the way, not on the phone. Doesn't work like that. Another visit is required where there's a lot of relating and there's a lot of good feelings, and there's reestablishing the trust in the relationship. And very casually you can open up conversations in a variety of ways. You could say something about you could ask advice, for example. I'm beginning to think about my own retirement and I'm watching you and it looks like you're doing a really good job. Do you have any advice for me? Or, you could talk about how scared you are about driving, and then does driving scare you too? There's so many tips that I have available, but it will require trust that's already established between the designated caregiver and the elder. That's key. And sometimes it's going to take a couple of visits just to get there, just to get back in the game of the relating.
Yeah. So I think that's fantastic advice, folks. I mean, from what Joy's saying, you don't want to do this over Zoom. You don't want to do
Mm-mm.
this on the
No.
phone. And it may cost you a couple dollars. We understand that to drive back or fly back to where mom and dad live. As Joy is also saying, you probably want to talk to one of them. I've said the same thing that Joy is saying over the years, that sometimes asking for advice can be a way to open up the conversation. I find that most parents, when their child asks for advice, they'll listen compared to flying back to mom and dad's house, maybe talking to mom privately and saying something along the lines of, "Mom, we got to talk." And that
Yeah. I
that
have some.
isn't going to work. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I just want to say I respect the fact that it costs a lot of money just to get back to, if you're traveling back and forth using airplanes and so on, and car transportation, whatever. I want everyone who is concerned about their finances to keep track of every dime they spend, even in the beginning, way in the beginning process, with travel and food and babysitting and house sitters or whatever you have to do to get to where you need to go, and it's going to cost you money. Keep track of every single receipt you spend from day one till the end. And the reason is because if your parents have a house to sell, or if they have money in the bank, you must bring forward those receipts and say, I have spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of my own money, and I cannot afford this. And I would really want to be reimbursed for all of these expenses. Would you please help me out here? In fact, you can say it in the beginning when you're chosen as the one. Say, listen, this is going to cost me money I don't have. I'm going to keep track of my finances and what I spend for mom and dad. And do you all agree that I get to be reimbursed later on?
That's fantastic advice, and especially that last line, "Do you all agree?" Because like I know, it can be pretty difficult within families, especially if there are multiple siblings, and as we talked about a few minutes ago, especially if siblings are on a different
Hmm.
page
Yeah,
about this.
that's right. So get it. So put a statement in writing and have them sign it. I can't tell you. I hate to say it, but elder care really separates siblings for a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
sad that we have to put it down in paper and get signatures, but it's a smart thing to do.
Fantastic advice, folks. I mean, if you hear nothing else throughout this episode we're doing, remember that, because, and Joy knows this and I know this, one of the biggest issues of all of this is cost. And it can start with those initial meetings that we're talking about, and then whether someone's coming in the home, mom or dad moves to an assisted living, memory care, whatever it may be, or it involves a family member taking care of mom or dad at their home or at mom and dad's home. There is unfortunately a lot of cost. So a little lighter part of this, Joy. Do you have any funny stories that you've heard over the years about families getting together for the holidays?
Oh, are you kidding? Which one? I think one of the best ones. Um, this was a friend who told me that this happened in her family. Every year they go to their aunt's house to decorate the house and the Christmas tree. Her aunt has dementia and she loves to decorate the Christmas tree with her underwear.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the whole family just goes with it and they love it and they put the ornaments around her, whatever she wants to do, they just go with the flow.
I'm picturing this in my mind, and I've never quite heard of that, but
Yeah.
wow,
Just,
wow,
you know what? It's just about having fun with each other and loving them the way they need to be loved and validated.
wow, and that's what's so important. And unfortunately, and you used the word, I believe, a few minutes ago, and I use it all the time, and that's denial. And you know, we're boomers, and we're never going to age. We're going to play with yo-yos and hula hoops for till 180. Well, folks, that isn't real. Yeah, we're really trying to do a really good job of taking care of ourselves, and hopefully our parents are, and so on and so forth, but we do age, and I hate to tell you that. And that's we're talking about. I'm going to ask Joy about her books in a second, but as we're talking about, I mean, this whole idea of planning, this whole idea of having a great celebration with your family and the folks that you love, but also understanding the realistic part that we're aging, we change, and then something most likely has to be done from a caregiving perspective. And with that, when I in the intro we talked about these books that you've written. The first one I'm going to ask you about is the Complete Elder Care Planner. I know you've revised it and updated it now in its fourth edition. Tell me about that and tell the audience.
In a nutshell, Richard, it is truly a planner. I don't I don't give much advice, believe it or not. It is all about every single thing you need to think about, all the questions to ask, and then how to do it so you sustain the quality of your own life, the caregiver's life, and then the elder that we care for. This book is unlike all the other ones because it is not caregivers are all one size fits all. I have taken great pains to make sure that the younger caregivers and the older caregivers and the sibling caregivers and the spouse caregivers and the LGBTQ plus caregivers all have their own customized plans.
That is fantastic. And folks, I'm going to give you a quote from an organization that you may be aware of. That organization is the American Medical Association. And their comment was, "This is the best book that we've seen." I mean, that's a pretty high testament, pretty high compliment. And I don't want to keep harping on this whole issue of plan, but Joy's written a whole book about it. and really tried to help folks understand how and what to do. It is so important. And your second book, Who Will Take Care of Me When I'm Old? What are your thoughts on that book, Joy?
Well, it's all about longevity, actually. So when you think about it, we all might be happily coupled or in lots of relationships, but the truth of the matter is the longer we live, the more we get left behind. Friends come and go, they move away, people we love die, dogs and cats, they go by the wayside. I mean, it's just a constant revolving door of relationships. This book is the same as the Complete Elder Care Planner in that it helps you anticipate and change and how to manage change in this process. So it's similar, but a completely different perspective on aging.
Wow. Wow. I mean, this has been an amazing conversation and folks, as we're going to wrap this up in a few minutes, but before we do, I mean, we've talked about a very important subject, the holidays. This time of year when so many families get together, and the chances are that someone in your family is aging, and with that aging process, there are changes and some great advice from Joy how you tackle this because I mean, you got a couple choices, and I've been saying this for years. You can do nothing, and you can
Mm-hmm.
decide not to have a conversation. And then that's kind of where my wife and I were, and I don't think we realized. I mean, the last parent passed away in 2019 at 96 years old. So again, longevity. And I actually worked with a client a few years ago that lived to 117. So this process can go on and on. And last thing I'm going to say about it, the better prepared you are, again, the easier it can be. Before I
Yeah.
go ahead, Joy. Do you have some more comments?
I was just going to say, if you want to take control, which boomers love. And I think everybody likes to do two things. They like to have control of their own decision making process. And the second thing is they will learn through planning that they are really creating a quality of life no matter what happens.
Again, fantastic information. So, Joy, if people want to get a hold of you, is there a website? Is there a phone number? What would you like to leave them with?
My website is the best way to go, and that would be elderindustry.com.
Perfect. And so, folks, great episode. As I kind of wrap up, and I do on every episode, if you're a caregiver out there, if you want to share stories on our podcast, I'm about to give you an email where you can reach out to me. If you're an expert in the industry and you want to share some of that wisdom, reach out to me as well. I hope you have a pen. That email is eldered2023 at gmail.com. So, again, I want to thank Joy. We very much appreciate it. And, folks, until we meet again, have yourself an awesome day.